everybody, and welcome to the Comic Coach podcast with me, Stroud, indeed, the Comic Coach. I hope you are well. I hope 2025 is treating you brilliantly so far. And of course, I've hoped that you've had lots of moments where you've been laughing and playing and doing awesome things and creating awesome impact. And of course, lovely listeners of the Comic Coach podcast, you know I get to chat to some awesome people. Today, let me just tell you, I've just been chatting to her. There's no exception to that rule because today we are chatting to the lovely Susannah Cole. I don't know why I felt the need to sing it, but I did. Hello.
Do you want me to sing an entry back?
I mean, you can if you like. I'm good with that.
It would make people laugh, that's for sure. I'll stay talking.
She stayed talking, people. She stayed talking. Are you all right?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Life is good.
Life is good. And I'm always curious because I get to chat to everybody around the world. And so, my lovely listeners are like, I like to know where people are. Where are you today?
Hey, listeners. Today I'm in Barcelona. And that is because I live in two places. I live in Bristol in the UK and I live in Barcelona. And I jumped out here yesterday and I'm taking my son skiing up in Andorra tomorrow. And he, aged 28, currently lives around the corner from me, which is kind of cute in Barcelona.
Nice.
We're going skiing in Andorra tomorrow.
I mean, this is good. This is what we like. And you know what just literally popped into my head, which is aging me somewhat, that the Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Mabelliot, I can't remember her name, Barcelona, it was the best time of our life, Barcelona. Anyway, that's enough of the singing. It's very lovely to have you here.
Should we see if I can tempt you to sing some more during today?
I mean, it's quite likely, as regular listeners will know, I like a good song, and I do sing in my show and I am trained. So, obviously, though it is, we are recording this at 9:45 in the morning. I haven't done my vocal warm up. So apologies, people that are vocal specialists. That probably wasn't my best.
Interestingly, I have a student who puts on musicals in London.
Amazing.
Yeah, Chris Ma, lovely guy. And actually, one of my closest friends who also did property with me at the same time, she's a trained actress and singer as well. So, yeah, there's a link. I
mean, we are everywhere, us actors and musical theatre people.
Yes.
Whisper it quietly. We infiltrate, there they are in the property world and I'm in the business world as well as, doing other stuff. Who knew that actors can have more than one skill? Crazy idea.
Yeah. Literally portfolio careers.
Literally, we are the embodiment of portfolio careers. And it's really not that surprising, really, when you think about it, because when I had my year where I was just acting, I was in the top 20% of actors, aka I was working for 80% of the year.
Correct.
And then there's, in essence, don't hold me to these stats, but it was 4% of actors that work 100% of the year. Yeah. So when you think about it, there is a lot of really talented people who aren't working for a lot of the year. So it's not surprising we expand our reach,
Yeah, so you start looking around and you start looking for something that potentially can help you, but doesn't always need all of your time in the future once you've built it. Great portfolio career. Yes. My friend Sarah is studied acting in Bristol, is an amazing singer, and is also now she's hit her 100th audiobook. She's a beautiful audiobook narrator.
Amazing.
Yeah, but a property portfolio runs alongside her.
I mean, look at this and that. Oh, was that a clue of what Susannah does? Property? Oh, did she drop it in? Maybe. We'll discover it during the pod. Right, now, of course, all of my regular listeners will know that I have my 6 questions all around impact. And are you ready?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, question. I mean, I do feel like it is a bit of finger on the buzzer. I feel like I might have to develop sending out buzzers to people that just become more and more ridiculous. So you've now planted that seed in my head, so it wouldn't just be.
There is one now. Am I allowed at all to say a rude word, or is it not?
Of course. Yes.
So years ago, my bookkeeper, with whom I still work, gave me a buzzer that just gave me about 6 different things. That's bullshit was one of them.
I like that. And let's face it, in the world of business, oh my word! I know. I mean, a very dear friend of mine, Julia Streets, who is the City's comedian, and she also runs a very successful financial consultancy firm. She created a whole thing called Business Bullshit Bingo.
Oh, yes.
And I think we all need that. When people start going into all of that terminology, it's like, oh, just talk like a person.
Yeah,
talk like a person. You're a human talking to a human, right? Okay. Question number 1. I pulled it back. Question number 1: Who has been the greatest impact in your life?
As many of your guests will say, there's probably multiples. the obvious are parents first. And I would say my dad, because he treated my sister and I as complete equals. There was not a jot of sexism, misogyny, differentiation. My dad is retired and very healthy at age 82. He only stopped running 3 years ago, still climbs mountains, and he's a maths professor. So you can imagine the level of logic in his brain as possibly the emotional. He's not a soft puppy.
Yeah.
Mr. Logic. And so logically, human beings are equal. So it's illogical not to treat men and women equally. It's lovely. So as a result, both my sister and I have thrived. And for me, it's in a man's world largely because I've got this fundamental base that says men and women are equal and we're human beings. It's what human beings do. And then because my mum was a teacher, and again, she's very happy at home and she loves property. And she taught, although she was a languages teacher, which is why I'm interested in international travel and speak a couple of languages, she also helped with young enterprise. So she had the real interest in business. So I think that's where the beginnings come from, which is if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And if somebody else can do it, you can do it. And also that kind of, childhood interest in business and cracking on things. Yeah.
And what's your mum and dad called, apart from mum and dad for you?
Mum and dad.
It's their mum and
dad. Bob and Elizabeth.
Bob and Elizabeth, you're good uns, you've set your girls up well. And it's so true, actually. And regulars will know this. So my dad was an entrepreneur. Yeah. And, one of his jobs was, one of his businesses was selling sweets. So he was a middleman, right? This wouldn't exist now because of the internet and logistics and things like that. And I remember, in comparison to all of my friends' parents, he was at home working until he died, and it was that thing of, oh, well, he can do that, and I used to go around warehouses while he was making deals. And obviously the great thing as a kid, I also got to eat the sweets. Yes. So, it was a pretty cool thing.
Product control.
Yes. Basically, I had to test them as a 7-year-old to make sure that they were okay. But, exactly the same as Bob and Elizabeth, they showed different ways of thinking and possibilities. And it's always fascinating to me how it's the behaviour of our parents in particular that that influences us versus our words, I
remember an anecdote. My parents still talk about it now, where I think in 1969 was when they got their first mortgage as a married couple. Right. And the bank manager called my dad into the bank and said, well, you don't really need your wife on this. What are you doing putting your wife on the mortgage? Right. And that's the norm, the culture. Yeah. And then I'm like, it was kind of, she's my wife. We're equal. Non-negotiable. Yeah. So it wasn't actually, he wasn't even campaigning. It was just illogical for him because remember, he isn't a professor.
And that's, what a thing to kind of just challenge very casually the deep sort of misogyny that was going on then, and women owning properties and having their own bank account. And it's that long ago.
No, that is 55 years ago, their first mortgage. The bank manager thought my dad was being unusual. So I guess the other part to that is then, I wouldn't say challenging in an aggressive way, because my dad isn't aggressive, but I've always looked at authority and the way that we've always done it and gone, interesting. Is that real? So I'll take on board really great advice, and professionals are generally professional and know what they're doing. But also I want to challenge and decide which way I'm going to furrow, put my path. Endowment mortgages. I remember, I used to have a chain of fair trade shops. When I say a chain, it sounds very posh. I had 5 fair trade shops in my 20s, and I worked I worked beyond belief. So it was pure hard work, scrape those shops up. It's fair trade when fair trade was early. And I remember going in and getting my first mortgage in a kind of tassely hippie skirt and in this wooden panelled solicitor's environment in Dundee. And he looked over his rimmed glasses and said, well, you should take an endowment mortgage. And I thought, I don't understand. Why would I take a product that doesn't guarantee to pay off my mortgage? Don't get it. Maybe I'm being thick, but I'm not buying it, so I'm not doing it. And that was that quiet, let me check whether that works back for me.
Yeah.
not. Yeah. And saved my bacon, didn't it, with endowment mortgages?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that thing, isn't it, of, excuse me, and I really understand it, that the challenging of conventions, the challenging of the status quo, and, the very fact that this podcast is called the Comic Coach Podcast. I have two very successful careers in very, supposedly very different fields, but it's taken me to my 40s to really own that, because for a long time, and this was me as much as the system, was like, well, I can't tell people I do comedy and I'm an actor in the business world because they won't take me seriously.
Exactly. It's that layer, but you can be high performing in both. Yes.
Yeah. And that's, and it's so fascinating, isn't it? Because it's that thing of, in order to have our impact, sometimes it's those taking a beat and coming back to self, as you said, and go, that doesn't serve me. That has an impact, right?
But then also being willing to be a bit uncomfortable, because I did not leave a very posh, very establishment Dundee's lawyer's office, age 26, with my stringy Indian skirt. You know the kind.
Yeah.
Terrible fashion choice. I did not leave that office thinking I was necessarily right. I did leave that office thinking, I must be a total diddy.
Oh, yeah.
So I think when you quietly think that isn't the thing that's going to work for me, it then makes, you then sit in a whole heap of discomfort for quite a long time. I just knew it didn't seem logical. So I didn't come out all brash and thrusting my chest and going, yeah,
look what I've done in my skirt. Bish, bash, bosh. I've messed with them. It's not that.
I come out thinking, I think I might be a Wally.
Yeah. Now, that is a word that is so underused, and I'm going to bring it back. Wally.
Yes.
I love it. So question number 2. What keeps you motivated in what you do?
Oh, it's inside. It's like in my stomach of excitement of being an entrepreneur. It is. So it comes from inside. So this morning, and I'm not trying to frustrate people who are sat in a grey British, but this morning I got up, I went out before sunrise, and I walked along the beach for an hour and a half, and I was doing mindfulness because I've had an interesting bump over the last couple of years, so I've really taken on board some training around mindfulness but it's inside. So the whole time I was doing mindfulness, I was like, this is great. I'm really happy to reconnect physically, but I can't wait to start my business today. So I leap out of, but not every day, by the way, folks. I generally bed energized about being a forward-thinking person who likes creating and making and doing and accomplishing. So there are people that live in the past and live in the present and live in the future. Well, I tend to be a person that likes driving towards the future. That's the inside part. And I'm energized by, woo, shall we do this? Come on. Hence the mindfulness, which is about learning to remain more in the present and also being more cognizant of checking in with yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
Inside.
I love that. And I think there's that thing, isn't there, of just allowing ourselves to take a beat, and I think that allowing ourselves to take a beat, and, I've just come back from running a retreat with 8 awesome women leaders from around the world, different sectors, right?
In
Lanzarote.
Yes.
Yeah, in the sunshine. And I think for all of us, it's that thing of what happens when we just, can't all go for an hour and a half in Barcelona. But if we all, even if it's literally 5 minutes, and you turn off the world and you just be, and that might be that you're looking at the sky, it might be that you're breathing, it might be whatever it is, from that place, you can then fly and have loads of energy and go and move and everything. But I think there's that taking that conscious choice to take that beat before we go, which then helps us navigate the bumps, which then helps us navigate the harder days. Don't you think?
Agreed. And I think it gives a sense of perspective. I mean, nothing's ever perfect in business. In fact, nothing's ever perfect in business, is it?
No.
You look back and you go, that was the trajectory. When you're in it, you're like,
yeah,
slight chaos with lots of systems, but yes. And also that for health, the parasympathetic state and the fight or flight or the rest and digest state. And taking that beat is really important. I want those white blood cells just kicking ass for me and goes killer T cells non-stop, please, people. Hence, listening to Chris and his mindfulness, because I did a course last year, and going, thank you, Chris, for these files. But I have to listen to the same one 5 times before I've actually started to concentrate.
Oh, yeah, completely. Because, you know, you and I like, got loads of things. It's like, oh. And then like on the 8th time of me listening to something that's really profound, I'm like, oh, that was good. I'm like, come on, Em, you've listened to it 8 times. You only just picked up, but that's also okay. You know, and I think that's the thing, you know, lots of people sort of go, oh no, I mindfulness meditation, I don't get it. I don't do it right. And it's like, there isn't a right way. You're just doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's about learning your well, certainly for me, I'm a beginner. So learning your physical response to something, learning your emotional response to something, and you learning your thought response to something. And then trying to make a response, not a reaction. That really helps in business as well. So first, what keeps me going is the inside little tummy belly driver. Woo, let's do this thing. And then being around people who are really inspiring. So good friends of mine who are inspiring, or listening to podcasts who are really inspiring, so that you kind of can feel that energy in and that excitement and that, well, if they can do it, I guess I could probably try too. From others.
Yeah, right. There's nothing nicer than sort of like, hang on a minute, if it's humanly possible, there is no reason why I can't do it, you know? Right. And it is literally sometimes as simple as that, going, well, if they've done it, you know, and not putting other people up on pedestals you can like and admire, but, you know, it's like everything's possible and everything's open to us, you know, when your mindset, and, you know, as long as, of course, you have the basis that you've got the financial, the, you know, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional kind of safety. So obviously, if you haven't got that, then that's what you need to work on. Just wanted to say that. That was like, hello, kids. That was my health warning. There you go. I am aware. Question number 3.
That is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it?
Literally. But it's also really important, because I'm aware sometimes people might be listening to podcasts and they might be in some sort of domestic abuse situation. And it's like, you can't go and fly and think about all of that stuff until you're safe. And safety is so important, you know.
What you can do is start drawing on this as a future possibility for you, which then opens the chink of light to the escape, to the move forward.
Absolutely.
Closing the door behind you, even if the other person's trying not to close the door. Shut that door, off you go.
Absolutely. Question number 3. How do you play?
Exercise first. Love it. I used to do CrossFit. I'm coming back to it now, and I love technical exercise. Sorry, has everybody listening just dropped off to sleep?
Well, you say it's technical exercise, kids. So what Susannah does is she gets a ruler out and a tape measure, and she's like, I'm going to technically move my arm by 0.5 meter.
No, I because I'm quite little. I'm only 5'2", and I used to be an amateur competition at CrossFit. You know, when CrossFit first came over, when everybody knew everybody. Now it's quite big. So because I'm quite little, I was like, well, you girls, you're all bigger than me, you're heavier than me, so naturally you can lift more than me. So I'm going to try and get technically very competent. And I went to an amazing gym called Empire, which no longer exists, which was proper old school. And met somebody who's now a really dear friend of mine called Sunny, who ended up, Sunny Webster, who went to the Olympics for weightlifting. So it was so much fun. A, very good at something. B, meeting, and this was when my business was like super crazy busy. So it was so good to go and put a bar above my head a few days a week, so you couldn't think of anything else. And just get that internationally expert coaching, and at the same time develop up a really long-lasting life friendship. And it's so fun to kind of be technically quite competent at something and kind of enjoy it. So that's what I mean about. I don't mean like I'm showing off about it, but because of Sunny, who's such an amazing coach, I've got really good technique. Now I don't lift us because I had a little glitch and a little illness. But I love that. I love when your body just goes, oh, this is fun. I know how to do this. So I like all exercise, you know, yoga, running, walking, CrossFit, Olympic lifting. I just went and spent a week in Palm Springs with my sister and my brother-in-law, which is 1950s heaven, you know, 50s, 60s desert postmodernism, you know, Frank Sinatra's house, Elvis Presley's house, Bob Hope's house, Louis Armstrong, Barbara Streisand, like all the stars, and these gorgeous sort of, almost you feel like you're in a movie where, and we cycled for 3 days. And I love all that, just that physical movement. So for me, I'm physical. I like physical play. Up on the terrace above my apartment here, I go do yoga most days. So that's
amazing.
And then it's how do I play? It's with companionship, with friendship, with family, with love.
That's so beautiful. And I think it's, it's, as regular listeners know, I've identified that there's 12 ways that adults play. And, so you would definitely fit within the mover and, getting to know you on this, and definitely the storyteller, which links to the telling of awesome stories and that connection and that care between families and friends and things like that, and we all have our natural default ways of playing. And then there's different ways that we can then explore and play with, some of which we like, some of which we don't. And that's okay. It's fascinating because for me, it's that thing of there are some people that are naturally the movers and then there's others that are naturally competitors. Now, they both might be doing the same thing, but what's going on inside their head can be different, So it's, even within that, there's different ways that we play. So I love it. I love it. I love it.
Would it be fun to explore then other ways of playing that aren't more sort of natural to one other. So this summer I spent 3 months in Brooklyn where my sister and I swapped houses. They live in Brooklyn. So they came to my apartment. Funnily enough, they didn't want to swap with my house in Bristol. They swapped with my apartment in Barcelona.
Strange that. Nothing wrong to you Bristolians. I love the Southwest. Nothing wrong with you at all, but Barcelona might trump you. Yeah.
So I was 10 minutes away from the Manhattan skyline. They were 10 minutes away from the beach. And I decided I would make it a funk, because it was the 50th anniversary of hip hop, funk, soul, hip hop, and R&B summer. I went to so many amazing concerts. I mean, Houses Parliament, George Clinton, Steel Pulse, Earth, Wind and Fire, Elvis Costello. Oh my gosh, Daryl Hall. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe the Oaks. I forget which one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Chicago. Janice Jackson. She rocked. Missy Elliott. And then some pop folks that I didn't know. And I loved a theme, which was music and culture and a classic. Oh my goodness. And Gladys Knight.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
In 80s stilettos and an orange dining suit or lounge. The woman rocked. Yes.
I mean, this is, and I mean, what a joyful thing. And in my terminology, that is the way of play is spectating, because you're there. And the thing is, what you experience, what you're saying, you can feel kind of the buzz and the energy and stuff. And when I was sort of thinking about how do adults play, it became really apparent that spectating is a very conscious way that we do go and play. Because in COVID, like gigs and sport was going on, but there was no spectators. And so the energy was completely different. And so many, myself included, missed it. So going to gigs and being there and feeling and in person, and it's like, Gladys Knight and I must admit, Missy Elliott, those are the two that I'm like, okay, I would love to see Missy Elliott live, because it's like
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, powerhouse of it's amazing because the Grammys have just come out.
Yes.
And that amazing, her name's now going to escape my head, begins with a D, but the second Black woman to win Best Rap Album. And Lauryn Hill was the first. And you just sort of think, but without Missy Elliott, these people wouldn't, and it's this legacy. Well, jealous.
Creative. But Janice Jackson is a bit underrated in the UK, I would suggest. But when you look at all the artists she's worked with, you realize that within her culture, she's massive. She came on and she was an absolute, years ago I saw James Brown. I mean, she just had the show, but Missy Elliott, the show was so incredibly creative. Yes. That was a theme. So that was less natural to me. Running and jumping and skipping is the natural.
Yeah.
Be fun themed 3 months.
And to do different ways of play does require energy and conscious thought, because otherwise, especially as adults, we're like, well, this is what I do. This is what I know I like. And I think quite often we make decisions, don't we, sort of in our 20s, this is the type of person I am. I'm into music, I'm into sport, I'm geeky, whatever word it might be. And actually one of my things is like, as adults, we should carry on just like we did as kids, exploring,
Yes. Well, I did go to see Farrah Munch. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name properly, Farrah, and I'd not heard of him before, but big guy. And I did go with my nicely tailored silk shirt and my nicely tailored linen trousers, and I'm a white lady in my 50s. And he was going, and kill, destroy, don't, just burn, kill, destroy. And it was quite a male audience, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, really need to be.
I know. Sometimes, I've always had a fascination with hip hop, mainly, well, partly because I sort of grew up with a lot of it, but also I think lyrically, I think what hip hop artists can do is that they can put into a tiny amount of bars an unbelievable amount of dialogue and an unbelievable amount of lyrics that somehow work and fit. And I think there's something about their ability with language that quite often, because I think if you just hear some hip hop and you might hear the chorus or you might just hear one track, you can miss out. There is so much nuance and there is so much storytelling and there's so much lived experience in a way that I think is just an extraordinary art form. So quite often I will find myself being literally the only middle-aged woman sort of going, bounce my head. If you're not watching this on YouTube, and bounce my head. And like, and then they're sort of looking around. So they're like, okay. And I'm like, okay. Just, we're all having a shared experience. Brilliant. Question number, no one cares. 4, I think. What is one action that you've taken that's really impacted your life?
I know this is cliched, but getting into property, it wasn't an overnight game changer because it isn't. But the end. Well, do you mind if I go a little bit deep?
Yeah, of course.
So, I don't do huge amounts about this, but I got diagnosed with 1, 2, 3, 4 cancers during COVID. Because why would you do one? Because that's amateur level.
When you're a high achiever, got to be high achiever in every level, right?
Well, this one I've preferred to skip, and I don't mean I don't want to, but I want this to be more fun for everybody. But the first one was a misdiagnosis, and I'm very, and so I moved, and so I was under a department that was not able to function. It was dysfunctional, and almost certainly other people would be dying as a result, and I nearly did because of, and so I moved from a back foot to a front foot within 6 months. It takes a little while to figure out, hang on, what's going on here. And I then paid privately in cash for all my own care. And I almost certainly would not be alive without it. So quite life-changing. And the reason I was able, the January 19th, I got the diagnosis and I didn't expect it. I'm like super fit, healthy, organic food, don't smoke, barely drink, don't love my sleep. And he said, you've got this cancer. And I leant forward and I went, it better not kill me. And I did not go back to work for 3.5 years. So it wasn't, I was able to use the money from property to pay for a chance of treatment that wasn't afforded me with that particular dysfunctional department. There are other departments in the NHS were really high performing. This was not. B, the waiting list for some of the cancers was so long, I paid for it anyway, even if the department was high functioning. And my consultant said, you've done the right thing. I normally would feel guilty, but right now your operation has been cancelled twice to remove it. So I was like, I'm just paying, let's do it. And then C, I had a preventative and I moved to the best hospital in the UK. And it's not that you can't do that without property, but we're talking 6 figures. So as a single parent, as I was 25 years ago, would I have been able to do that? No, I'd have probably died. So, so the ability to rest and digest for 3.5 years and do daily spa treatment type things, as well as going slightly frightened.
Yeah, of course.
And just pay for every single piece of treatment and work with the best medicine team in the UK. Yeah. And I don't want to be exclusive of other people, but that's the reality that I found myself within.
And I mean, thank you for sharing. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because property, I know a few people in the property world, and I think what you've just described there is in essence, I think, why a lot of people who perhaps aren't property professionals start, as you've said, having a property portfolio, excuse my terminology, but, start thinking, okay, how can I, secure some wealth? How can I grow that, etc., alongside all of the other things I'm doing? Because, it's an asset that you're building. And no doubt, and it's interesting, because I've just, and regular listeners know this, I've just had COVID. And, 6 weeks, I was really not a very well bunny with COVID, right?
Yeah.
And it really did dawn on me at that point. It was like, gosh, I'm in a place where, because I've done okay, I'm okay.
Huh.
But I was like, but if this was another 2 years,
Yep.
where would, and obviously I've got insurance and things that I bear, but it's the thing where you suddenly go, and as a single mum of a 12-year-old boy, it's like, and it is, and it's made me sort of just go, okay, let me have a little rethink. What else can I do so that if those worst case scenarios happen, like you had created that position that you could then, in essence, look after you.
Yeah.
But nobody else had done that. Nobody else had come and rescued you. No one else has gone, Susannah, here you go, have some money. You had chosen to get yourself in that place. And I think one of the reasons that I was drawn to talk to you about on the pod was, you feel, and, talking to you, it definitely feels like that everything that you're talking about in terms of property comes from heart as well as head.
Yeah.
And that to me is so important, because my impression of quite a lot of people in the property world is it's very head and can be quite ruthless.
Some. And also you've got two different types. You've got empire builders and lifestyle people.
Yeah, okay.
I would probably suggest empire builders are, that they want to do 1,000 properties, or that they're the kind of city, and therefore it's whereas lifestyle, which is definitely what I am, which is I want a good lifestyle. I want to be proud of my work. Should I have a little trip up like that one where I was with my daughter at the time, and I leant all the way. I'm so glad that was my response. This better not kill me.
Yeah.
Means that inadvertently, without realizing it, I'd built a safety net that I didn't know I needed. And then, when the dog is entirely pulled from under your feet, you're like, oh, thank God for this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think landlords get a terrible press. There, of course, in anything that, there's a couple of outliers, but generally landlords are catering for and looking after people who live in their homes, and you want it to be a great experience, and you want them to be safe.
Yeah. And it's funny because obviously, you're in Barcelona at the moment, you travel and everything else like that, and it's funny. It's always struck me that, when you're in Europe, the majority of people do rent, and the UK has a very different mindset of asset, got to own your own home. And, and it's one of those things of when you travel, it's like, well, actually, I've got some really dear friends that live in France, and they have rented their home for, I think, 25 years.
Wow.
And it just gets renewed every 10 years.
Yes.
Because that's just the norm, and there's no, and that's the piece. And I think, it's fascinating, isn't it? That moment that you chose that you were going to go in property, you didn't have a crystal ball that was going, and in your 50s, you're going to need to take 3 years off. Well, you might have done, don't know.
In my 40s, it was when it started.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. And it,
rude.
Yeah. And it's really rude, but I mean, well done for being here,
I need to take the 3.5 years off, but I decided I wanted to, because I just, that kind of classic cliche in business terms of the Sky cycling team, they were doing everything to get that 0.1% extra. So into the pillows, they looked how to get the dust off the bikes, they looked how to install the bikes, they looked how to improve the rider's sleep, all of that stuff. And my view was very much, okay, you guys are the experts. I walked into chemo, and I was going with good hair, and I go in with clothes, and I walked in and went, give me chemo with rainbows and chocolate, please. Because of course I was bloody terrified, but chest up, chest out, shoulders back and down, let's go. And I'm not actually doing this for the other people that I am meeting. I'm doing this to instruct my body that this is a confident thing we're doing. Because but then I reckoned, okay, you do your bit, and I will absolutely take, work in partnership with my doctors, but I need to do my bit, which is about boosting the immune system. So I chose to take the 3.5 years off. Other people work all the way through, and whether that's wrong for them, that's their choice. Me, like, immune system boost 1%, please. That's just
and also, and we were saying this before we started recording. It's like if you can't do that as an entrepreneur, it's like might as well go and get a job. So, and sometimes it's like, I think in the West in particular, we've fallen into this, got to be working, then you're going to have a holiday, and it's like we're human first.
Yes.
And when you really sort of dive into the where people are happiest, strange enough, one of the main things that they prioritize every day is rest. Every day is rest. And how many of us in the Western capitalist world, and I have no problem with capitalism, how many of us actually actively prioritize rest on a daily basis?
Only since learning about the rest and digest, the parasympathetic state, do I, and that's because it's medical.
Yeah. You see, it's all that, and it's a fascinating thing for me. It's like, they prioritize rest and they also prioritize play. But obviously I would say that,
Yes. Right.
So this
play, because it makes you happier.
Of course.
Yeah.
Does all the good stuff, right? This links in beautifully to my next question, almost like I thought of the order of them. Who knew? How do you take care of yourself?
Oh, a lot now.
Good.
Now, I'm very interested. I have a spreadsheet, obviously, it wouldn't surprise you.
Love that.
So I did go through cancer with a very dear friend who died. She was terminal, and so we would meet twice a week, and I'd go, well, Sheila, you went deep and I went wide, and I would be up at 3 a.m. doing lots and lots of research and then emailing it to her, and she'd pick up the phone at 11 a.m. and saying, now, dear heart, do we really need to be up at 3 a.m? So as a result of having read way over 1,000 medical papers on health and cancer, I'm acutely aware of all the stuff, sleep, good food, rest. I'm really aware of boundaries in terms of what does work and doesn't work. And actually, cancer just informs that for you. You've got so many MRIs and, we're just going to do a brain scan just in case it's spread to your brain. Great. Having a good time here, people. So that you form this strength, which is a loving strength. And then the other beautiful thing that happens is immediately, or I did, who I love and who loves me. And so those social connections are much, much stronger now. A couple have gently fallen by the wayside because it's obvious as well. So I reach out and to love and be loved by the people I love, and connect a lot more than I did before. I play, I rest, I do my beginner mindfulness, and I must do walking, and I must sleep, and I must eat well. Kind of not talk the truth. Sometimes I need to mull things over and journal, and then I must have clear quality relationships. No eggshell nonsense. Maybe eggshells for a few days while you're figuring something out. We got to have clarity, and we've got to have open heart. Yes.
What a beautiful way of describing it. Thank you. And then finally, on my not quickfire quiz, because it's not a quiz, nor is it quickfire. What have you been thinking?
Did you sleep?
You what?
You sung again. I'm hoping.
I know. Yeah, don't worry, I'm going to snip it in. It's fine. What have you been thinking about in the last couple of days?
Two things, a frustrating one and a good one. So the good one is I'm about to go skiing with my son, and I'm looking forward to spending time with him and having fun, because I do think that often in the parent-child relationship, you can be, when I say you, I mean me, you can be a little bit instructive, especially when you see what you think they should be doing differently. Recognize anyone? So I really try and bring in play to bring your words into our relationship, because obviously mum thinks she knows best, and I have to kind of zip it sometimes and think, oh, my darling, I can see this would be amazing for you, but you just have to shush sometimes and go play with them. So I'm really looking forward to him basically beating me down every single slope.
I mean, this is what's going to happen, right? And I just need to interject, because he said there's a couple of things to be thinking about, and I love that. I read a book. So William is about to turn 13, and I read a book. Well done me. And it was the most. It was this very simplistic book with pictures, and it wasn't a comic, and it wasn't, but it was a very simplistic book about just think about your words with young people, right? And I've helped raise my nephews who are now same age as your son and stuff. So it's not like and one of the things, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true, was you as a parent will naturally here's something, and then you'll go da-da-da-da-da, and either try and fix or tell them where they need to go. And
Yes.
and we only do it with our kids because we wouldn't do it with another adult. Hopefully, if you've got a health,
almost
because it'd be rude, right?
Naturally being rude, your whole heart wants to help. Yes.
Yeah. So you're, so you're there, and it's all the right intentions, no downside. And then this book, this really simple thing, just went. So as opposed to going into let me fix, let me sort, let me give you ideas, and it said it basically. It's like just shut up, just shut up and take a beat and go. Oh, I hear you, right? And so my boy came back. This is about a year and a half ago, and he came back from a football training, and he'd been training. He's a proper good footballer, and he'd been training with the B team, and he's the A teams. The A and the Bs have been trained together, right? And he came back, and he's like, "B team's so annoying." Now, me not having read this book, saying just shut up at him, I would have been like, "Well, maybe we should move you. Maybe we should do this. And did you think about that? And have you done that?" And I just went, "Shut, just shut." And literally had to kind of go, "Shut." And I just went, "Oh, I hear that. That must have been really hard." Didn't try and do anything. Just went, "I hear that. It must have been really hard." I am not joking. My boy looked at me like, "What has happened to my mother?" And then he went on this whole other bit explaining all of this other stuff. And then by the end, he'd reconciled the fact that actually he was with the B team. And he also worked out that he should go and talk to the coach because it wasn't beneficial. And I literally was like, "Lesson learned, just shut up because you'll find his own answer." Most of the time. So yeah. So yes, you're thinking about going and being, and you're right, like William now beats me on every sport bar table tennis. I am a competitive player. Bar table tennis, I think I've still got him. But basketball, we tried yesterday. Ridiculous. So yeah, that's one of your things you've been thinking about. What's the other thing you've been thinking about last couple of days?
The other one is actually a more practical thing. You tend to find where people do, if they're property educators like I am, that, and I don't mean this rudely to anybody, they're either really great at sales and possibly not always amazing at the delivery and the quality of content, or they're really super at the quality of the content, but they're kind of a B-lister at sales. Yep. And I would put myself in that category.
Right.
So I'm irritating myself because I want it to get to more people, and I have that British reticent sales. So it's about learning how to do a very good job in a good, honest, positive way in a subject that makes me Britishly slightly queasy. Yeah. So I'm
do. Yes. And that's the thing, and it's so beautiful, isn't it? Because we all have areas that make us go, "Ooh," and then other areas that were like, "That's fine, that's easeful," and everything else like that.
You turn around to me and say, "Suze, could you go raise £1 million for a really amazing property deal?" I would do that all day long. You turn around to me and say, "Suze, could you go find some discounted deals or any of that stuff?" All day long. You turn around to me and say, "Could you be really, really expert sales?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
Although, isn't it interesting because you going and raising £1 million is in essence sales, but because it's an academic, because it's disconnected from you per se, there's a different way that you can approach it. Yes. And so it's that thing, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Because you do have all the skill set. It's just that the head and the heart perhaps haven't quite met, which is...
That's what needs to, because, yes, so I'm not trying to slide something in sideways as a naughty thing.
Yeah.
It is what I'm genuinely thinking about and going, how can we make this a professional quality system that is great?
Yeah.
Everybody. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's niggling me.
It's niggling. It's a niggle thought, but don't worry, when you go down the slope and your boy's already at the après ski and you're, and he's had 2 lovely sort of Aperol spritzes and whatever else he's had. And he's like, "Oh, Mum, have you finished? Have you?" "Yeah, I did really well." Obviously you'd be far more cute than that. "Yes, darling, I did fine." You'd be there and you'd be like, "Aperol spritz, brilliant." While you're whizzing down, no doubt that the magic always happens when you create space. Yes. And then as soon as you create space, and you go like, "Oh, that's how I can do that system." Oh, okay. Yeah. And I could talk to you for hours, but I'm aware of obviously your time and of course my good listeners' time. Now, how do people find your beautiful self and all of the magic that you do to help awesome people get to be in a really good place with property and all of that good stuff? Where do they find you?
They can use it to travel and generational wealth.
Yeah.
Then slight trickiness that sometimes life throws. Well, if they want to download loads of brilliant free stuff, then thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk, because obviously we're trying to be a good property company. Loads of free stuff there. If they want to look at the YouTube, we've got over 2 million views. So that is Susannah Cole The Good Property Company. There's all the usual Instas, Susannah Cole UK, Facebooks, and they can email into the team as well, and we'll be glad to chat to everybody.
I mean, I love how to say, yeah, there's been a couple of million views. You know, guys, it's all right. You know, I don't just get anybody on this podcast. We get good stuff, you know. And if you haven't got a sense of it, because obviously this will be up on YouTube, haven't got a sense for it, she's very lovely on YouTube. I actually had lots of fun watching videos. Like, oh, she's good. She can speak. She knows what she's talking about. You know, so yes, I will make sure that all of those links are, of course, available in the show notes and everything else like that. I knew it was going to be a joy chatting to you on the Comic Coach podcast. So thank you so much for coming.
I am I was looking forward to it beforehand, but I'm coming away going, woo!
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, kids. This is what we have.
Day. What a good day.
Well, enjoy Barcelona. Enjoy skiing with your boy. And honestly, thank you so much for coming. Go on.
And shut up. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. In the nicest possible way. Shut up.
He might write you a thank you letter.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be like that. Oh, hi, Susannah's son. Yeah, thanks. My mum has stopped telling me what to do all the time. It's like, yeah. It's a gift. Thank you ever so much, lovely. We will chat soon. Take good care. Bye. But how much did you like her? I liked her a lot. Gosh, so many things to take from that conversation. But, you know, as I just sort of sit and reflect on it, I think it's so interesting, isn't it? You know, this whole idea of rest and this whole idea of being able to create enough wealth that if we chose to, or in her case, if we were in a situation where actually it would serve us to take time off work. And like I said, you know, having just had COVID again, it really has sort of landed with me, that whole idea. Because at the moment, you know, if I, truthfully, lovely people, if I had to, you know, take 6 months off work because I was breaking my leg or something, that would be really tricky on every level. And I wonder how that's landed with you. Now, of course, it's different. You know, if you've got a job, there's various different things and support, but all of us are in that place, I guess, in many ways, whether an entrepreneur or employed. But I think the key thing for me is not always about the what if and worst case scenario, right? What I'm really thinking about is how do we make sure that we're supporting ourselves while we are well? Now, you can probably hear, I've still got a little bit of COVID. You know, it's still floating around, very boring, my sinuses. But it's like, how do we support ourselves when we are well? You know, and as she said, you know, lots of those things that have happened for her in terms of movement, in terms of eating well, in terms of sleep, all of that good stuff has come partly because of the result of her cancer. And I'm really in that place where I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to be in a place where I'm responding to something. And I think that's one of the things that I think we do find ourselves, don't we? We find ourselves in places where we only shift ourselves when we're in response to something. And actually, one of the things that I'm very much conscious of, that was one of the worst sentences I've ever said in a podcast, so I apologise for that. One of the very things that I'm most conscious of, one of the things that I'm conscious of, is that whole idea of being really proactive about different parts of my life. So if you're thinking about it in terms of life, and as I see it, you know, we're kind of made up of these 4 quadrants individually. So there's physical health, there's spiritual health, there's emotional health. And which have I said? Physical health, spiritual health. Yeah, physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, and financial health. There we go. Nailed it. And on my way back from my retreat, I sort of really was reflecting on myself, you know, as you do, post holding a retreat for other people. And actually the areas that I really want to give attention to, because I've spent a lot of time giving attention to my emotional health and my spiritual health. I'll carry on giving them attention and giving them care. But actually I was like, you know what, I want to move the torch, move the spotlight into physical and financial health. Now, my physical health was pretty good pre-COVID. So at the moment, I feel a bit bigger than I normally like to feel. But that's because I haven't done exercise for 6 weeks and I'm now gently back into yoga, and next week I'll go back to the gym. So the physical health I know will get there. I'm also going to get PT again. So, you know, that I'm kind of there. But the other bit was real financial health and just really taking some time just to really think about that. And I think talking to Susannah has just confirmed it. If you take some time, now some of you will be brilliant at this and not so good at your spiritual health, you know, we're all different, right? But it's just taking that beat of going, what do I want to do proactively rather than reactively in order to help me feel grounded and secure in all of those 4 elements? So this is my creative week. I'm on one of my weeks where I'm not really doing any business calls or anything else like that. I'm thinking about my show. I'm thinking about podcasts, hence I'm recording this. I think about my book, all of this, all of the kind of creative stuff, right? So I haven't got meetings or anything else like that. I'm just in flow in that sense. And actually, one of the things that I realized in order to be truly creative, one of the things that I needed to do was just look at my numbers for both my business and for me personally. So that's what I did. Yesterday, I spent about 3.5 hours. That's right, 3.5 hours, kids. And I really enjoyed it. And what the gift of me doing that, and I think this really comes back to the conversation that I had with Susannah, because in essence, what she's done by making that choice to go into property was that she really looked at her financial health, right? And she now helps other people think about their financial health. And honestly, I've watched a lot of her videos and she's really good. She knows her stuff. And if you're drawn to her, do honestly go and check her out, because she's doing some really good stuff. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's about, with kindness, with ease, looking at which one of those 4 things do you need to pay attention to, and doing it in a proactive way. So not waiting until, I don't know, you're going through some awful breakup and then you're thinking, oh, I'm a bit broken. Or, so suddenly I need to look at my emotional health. I've said on podcasts before, it's really important, don't get therapy just when you're feeling a bit shit. Go get therapy when you're feeling good, because actually that's when magic happens. If you're spiritually not feeling very aligned with you and where you're at, don't wait until you really burn out. Go and do something about it. Go find a teacher, read different books, go on retreat. You get the idea. And the same with physical and the same with financial health. So for me, I think the thing that I've really taken from that conversation is actively choosing rest on a daily basis, not in response to being unwell, is a big one. And proactively choosing to really focus on one of those 4 areas of your life so that you are in a really good place to then go out and create awesome impact and do all the cool things you want to do. Take a beat, think about which one of those 4 you need to spend some time thinking about, shifting, paying attention to. And then from there, magic happens, everybody. So there you go. There's another episode of the Comic Coach Podcast with me, Stroud. Thank you so much for listening. Do, as ever, like, subscribe, do all of those good things. If you're watching on YouTube, then do subscribe to my channel. If you're watching anywhere else, do the same thing. And and also, finally, if you are in London, then do go on the Leadership Impact School. So if you'd like to come and learn some cool stuff about how you can have more impact in life and leadership, go on the leadershipimpactschool.com. And, there's open days that you can just come and book yourself on. So there's everything from a day about storytelling, a day about facilitation, a day about presenting, a day about inner voice, loads of different cool stuff all the way through the year. So do go on that website. And if you want to come and hang out with me and some awesome people that run it with me, then come and do that. There you go. That's the end of the promo bit. See, Susannah, told you I was going to sing again. Have a good rest of your day. And I look forward to catching up with you next week. See you later. Bye.